Coaching Soccer Weekly, episode 367, Locking It Down, Mastering the Art of Defending in Soccer. Entertaining, educational, and inspiring soccer content to help make you a more effective coach, player, or soccer parent. Hello and welcome back to Coaching Soccer Weekly, presented by World Class Coaching. My name is Sega Verbinovich, and this is the podcast devoted to bringing you cutting-edge methods, techniques, and tactics for coaching soccer. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced coach who has been training teams for many years, or if you're new to coaching and working with a team for the very first time. There's something we can all do to take our coaching to the next level. Welcome back. Let's sum up the weekend and then get into the main part of the show, too. I'm super excited. If I could describe this weekend, I would describe it as sleep deprived. I think, as a coach, a lot of people can share that testament once in a while. I had an 9 o'clock meeting at the hangar, which is where we play our indoor games. However, that is 40 minutes away from my house. So super early morning. And we had a district meeting. And this was the first district in-person meeting that we've had with, technically it's supposed to be all the clubs, but not everyone showed up since before COVID. So we walked in and, the board of directors was sitting there and we got a whole binder with the minutes and everything that we were going to talk about. And it was long. It was about 3 hours of talking and opinions and just a lot of stuff that, as a bunch of soccer coaches come into one room, I've always said this, they're going to talk, and there's going to be opinions and disagreements and new ideas and all that. So most of what we spoke about was actually the new league. So as I've mentioned before, we're probably one of the smaller districts in Ontario. And now we're merging with two pretty big districts and we're going to create what's called a mega district. So there were a lot of concerns with, and they were very valid. One of the biggest ones is voting power. The way it works in some districts is that you get a vote based on the number of registrations that you have. So we have clubs here with thousands and thousands of kids, and then we have other clubs with hundreds of kids. So those with thousands of kids get a bigger vote and a bigger say in the overall decision-making process within certain districts. With us, it's not like that with our district. Every single club or academy gets one vote, right? So the big worries are when we get into these this new district, that we're going to lose that voting power, and that the big guys are essentially going to say, well, we have most of the players in the area, we have a bigger percentage, so because of that, we should get more of a say. So a lot of discussions around that, around some other things, facilities, and just kind of the stuff that, as coaches, we don't really think about, voting in the right people for the right job for this, merger, just making sure that steps are there, how everyone feels about it. There was also talks about financials, looking at this year's past financials, and actually the past 4 years. So it was a lot of the back end of things that parents don't see, players don't see, and most coaches don't see. So it was an experience, a long experience, 3 hours. We had breaks in between, and there were obviously disagreements and stuff like that, and ideas and frustrations and collaboration. It was a really interesting 3 hours, let's put it that way. Now, because I was already there, I spent the rest of the day up until our 2 games in that area. It didn't really make sense to go back. And because the game was so early and I was very tired, I forgot to bring the VO on Saturday, which is so frustrating. Because our 2013s had their first game, 2013, 2012s. We played against a full 2012 team, and we played so good. And what we did was we did the 1-touch, 2-touch move. This was the only team that did this last week. And last week, as I mentioned last week, we played against a team that really wasn't at a high level. So we really got to practice the 1-touch, 2-touch move. And I think because of that, the players came in this week, and we also had a full week of 1+1 touch, 2-touch move in our training sessions when we did the 2v2, and they were ready. And this team is a very winning mentality type of club. So when they get the ball, they look up, they look to kick it, and they don't really build out of the back. There isn't a lot of, passing, working the ball around. There's barely any 1v1s. So most of their goals were very quick. Goalkeeper drop kicks it, and then they score. And they were bigger, they were stronger, they were faster. It's their first team, so most clubs have those athletes, top athletes in their first team. And for us to be able to still 1-touch, 2-touch move and compete and stay in that game until the very last moment was incredible. We ended up, it was 3-3 with probably 30 seconds left. And you can see the timer going down. Our goalkeeper came out, picked up the ball, very young referee, 15 years old, called it probably because the other coach yelled for it. He called out, goalie's out of the box, which I don't think he was. They take that free kick, end up scoring. We don't know how to do a wall or anything like that. I've never coached that. So, they ended up winning 4-3. But my goodness, the 1-touch, 2-touch move, it's a game changer. And I'll tell you why as well. If we start to talk about the Sunday games, we had our 2014s, and then we had our 2011, 2012s. What's great about the 1-touch, 2-touch move is, as a coach, my focus is solely on that. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Sega, there's the other team that you got to focus on tactics. You got to focus on team tactics and all that. And I understand that. But here's what ends up happening that I've noticed in the past couple of weeks of just me coaching the 1-touch, 2-touch move. What ends up happening is I really just don't care about the other team. I don't care about the ref. I think if that 15-year-old made that call 2 weeks ago when I wasn't doing the 1-touch, 2-touch move, I would have had something to say. I would have been frustrated at that point. But because I didn't really care what he was doing or what the other coach was doing, I didn't focus on it. I didn't yell at the ref at all this weekend. Like, nothing was said to the ref. Didn't even focus on the other teams we were playing against. It's really a player-centered approach in its truest form. Because at that moment when that player has that ball and he's got that 1-touch pass, 2-touch pass, or if he wants to take more than 2 touches, he has to do a move. That's the focus. That's the essence of the game. And for me, it was a huge shift. And I had my assistant coach with me. He's a regular coach, but he helps me all the time. He's great. And he came to watch our 2013s play. And within the first 2 minutes, he turned to me and he said, "This is a completely different team than 2 weeks ago when he was there," because he wasn't there last week. It just changes everything. On Sunday, we lost 7-2 to, and this was our 2014 team. We lost to another club, which plays in a different district than us, and we're playing in their district as the 2014s. And I really like the owner of it. And again, the score just didn't matter to me at all. The goals that were scored against us, I didn't really mind. It just really changes everything. And until I think you experience it, and you can go onto our YouTube, Gladiator Soccer Academy, you can watch last week's game. I haven't had a chance to update this week's game, but you can just see the difference. I put in a highlight video that really shows, out of, I think we had 10 players that game last week, 7 of those players completely different 1v1s every single time doing a skill. And as a scout that comes in when they're 14, 15 years old, who are you going to look at? Like, who is that scout going to look at? Is he going to look at the team that 2 players are touching the ball, goalkeeper and the forward? Or is he looking at our team with 7 out of 10 players doing deceptive dribbling moves, Maradonas, fake shots, sidesteps, scissors, being able to beat players? We have a player who is probably half the size of the 2012s because he's also a 2013 and he's short for his age. He destroys players with Maradonas and just makes them look silly. There have been moments on the sidelines where teams would be walking by after their game. We would drop a player with a move, and you just hear that street-like mentality of just them screaming like, oh my God, like, I can't believe he pulled this off. And our kids are tiny. Now, having said that, what happens when you really focus on your team, and I mean focus on every single player, you really start to see the new issues that come out within your teams. And one of the things that became very clear very early from our Saturday games to our Sunday games is defending. Our 1v1 defending is just not good enough. And that's really what we're going to focus on today. And that's what we're going to focus on this week during training. And the great thing is we can focus on it in 1v1s. We can focus on it in 2v2s. So we can really isolate that skill using any one of these 2 different training methodologies. So today, I'm really going to talk about defending, mainly that 1v1 defending, and how I've kind of made some changes since, our games this weekend and the way that we coach it. So let's get started. So let's first talk about the way that we have been up to this point doing 1v1 defending. Now, I don't think it's wrong what we did. And we're going to continue to do the same thing, but it's not the full picture. We were missing some key points in there that I really think will change everything. So let's first talk about what we did, the coaching points, and then I'll add in the ones that we're going to add starting this week. So our first coaching point was get in between the player and the net, right? We want to block off the shot first. Getting scored on is the first thing that we need to stop. Okay, so in between the ball and the net. So now that we've gone in between the ball and the net, now we have to start to approach the ball, right? We've made sure the player can't score. And now we have to, what we talk about is arm over the ball. So we're going to approach on our surfboard. Then we put that arm right on top of the ball. And that creates the distance of how far we should be from the ball. From there, we should be on our toes, and we ask our players for hot feet. So what that means is we ask them to pretend that the ground is really hot, and that way their feet should be moving really quickly. Then we talk about fake attack, which is really faking like we're going to attack the player so that the attacker makes a mistake, and that we can capitalize on it. Now, that's how we used to do things. there are going to be some big changes. But I think the biggest change overall is going to be the mentality of the players going in. That's what we really have to shift. So here's how we're going to do that. We have to really understand the overall concept of what's happening here. The attacker has the advantage, in my opinion. And here's why. If the attacker is able to attack the defender straight on, nose to nose, then the attacker can go either left or right. And what we're doing there is we're providing an option for the attacker. And that's what our players have done. Essentially, because their arm is over the ball and because it's in between the ball and the net, they're kind of coming on sideways, just like they should in that surfboard position. But there's still the ability for the players to choose left or right. So what does that do for the defender? Well, the defender has to react to the attacker. And whether we're on defense or we're attacking, we never want to react to a player. We want to be the one that provokes the player. So if I'm attacking, I'm provoking the defender to make a move by faking one way so that I can go the other. So when I fake one way and I see the defender bite to take that step towards the way that I fake, then that clearly opens up the other way. And from a defensive point of view, because I think mostly attack, I was a terrible defender, I didn't really think about the defensive side as much. So now thinking about it, it's very, very obvious that our defenders are at a disadvantage whenever they're playing against any defenders. So the overall concept of provoking them is one, but two, we have to take away one option. So instead of having two options, we want that attacker to have one option, which makes us as a defender, rather than having to guess which way, right, left or right, and react to what they're doing, we now can take that power and say, okay, we're going to force them left. So now we don't have to worry about the right side. So I can really focus on what's happening on that left side. Now, there's a bunch of reasons, and we can have a bunch of discussion, like a very long discussion about, which way. Okay, do we force them towards the sideline? Do we force them inside? And there's lots of different supporting arguments based off that. But here's what I'll say. The way the player should go is the lowest risk in that situation. So here's an example, right? We are it's a corner kick. Okay, this is what happened to us in the game. They take it short, the other team that we're playing against. And it's a give and go. It's a U9 team, so there's no offsides. He receives the ball back on the baseline, on the goal line, right? He starts to dribble. One coach might say, okay, the lowest risk option is to cut off the lane inside and use the goal line as the player dribbles as an extra defender. Fair enough. That's a low risk option. But a different coach might say something completely different. They might say, well, yeah, 100% right. But if you're allowing them that goal line dribble, then now they're able to go towards the net. They're able to maybe get a shot in, and that's dangerous. So instead, what we could do, and what that coach might say is the lower risk option, is let's, again, in between the ball and the net, let's make sure that there are two defenders on our team around, which we had at that point. Our player forced them away from the net into a trap of 2 other defenders, and we were able to go with a 3 against 1, get the ball and get it out. So it's really, there's arguments for both sides. So it's what is that lowest risk in that scenario. So let's go through a list of which way and options, right? Again, this is all under the umbrella of lower risk and what the player should be thinking about. So one is you have limited support, right? So let's say you're defending and there's no one behind you. At that point, the safest option would be let's take him towards the sidelines, right? I don't have any support. If he beats me, I'm done. So let's take him out towards the sidelines. Another option, let's exploit their weak foot. Why not? Okay. If you know that player, okay, which honestly, if it's the first time that player receives it, there are ways to figure that out. But that's a fair argument as well. Okay, he might be really bad. So that's a low risk option if the player has it on his weak foot. There might be a complete different team strategy saying, you know, we actually want to funnel the players towards the center space so that we can win it towards the center space. We can really congest the center space area, and then we can send the ball to our wide space players and they'll be isolated, right? That's an option. So a team strategy. Two, we have another option of we do have defensive cover. If I know that Johnny is beside me and I know Johnny is a great defender, I'm going to force that attacker towards Johnny. Now we're 2 against 1. Why not? If we have an advantage there, why not? So there's a bunch of different options, but in the player's mind, what should be going on while they're scanning, what's the lowest risk? How can we reduce the risk of that attacker being effective? Okay, and the basic answer, get them away from the goal, right? If they cannot shoot, they are less of a threat. Okay, yes, they can make passes, yes, all this other stuff. But the biggest threat to us in this game is getting scored on. We don't want them to get scored on. Okay, that's how you win games, by getting scored on. So if we can reduce that, that's great. So that's the first idea, okay, cutting off one side. Next is that idea of who makes the first move. The more information you have in any situation, the better decision you can make. You may not always make the best decision, but the more information you can gather in a specific situation, the better the decision will ultimately be. So in order to get the most out of a situation when we're defending, we want the player that's attacking us to make the first move. And we want to force them to make that first move so that we can now have more information about what's going to happen. So the first thing that we've done is we've taken away half of where this player can go. Now they can only go one way. Next, what we have to do is we have to force them to do something with the ball. So maybe that's dribble, maybe that's to turn away so they can reset, maybe that's to pass the ball, whatever that is. We want to make them do something that'll give us more information about what we can do next. Because if we are the first ones to react, then that player now has an advantage over us because they know what we're going to do. And the way that we do that is with a fake attack. It's kind of like going swimming. Now, if I were to go swimming and I would go to the edge of the pool, I would jump right in, I would have absolutely no knowledge of how cold the water is. Now, the mistake that I always make when I go swimming is that I will go to the shallow end and I will dip my toe and I will make the decision every single time that the water is too cold. The only reason I can make that decision is because I have more information about the water. And it's the same thing with defending. If as a defender, I always jump in, I don't really have any power to make a decision. I'm giving the decision to the attacker, because as I'm jumping in, the defender sees that foot and they can easily do a Maradona around me. And that's what we do to other teams. That's why our Maradonas are so deadly, because the defender will cut off a lane. They'll cut off one side. So they'll go, okay, this player can't go this way anymore. Then they'll go, okay, now I can jump in, because they can only go one way. And as they jump in, what they've actually done, because a Maradona is a shoulder-to-shoulder move, they've now opened up their other shoulder and made it so easy for us to get around them on the side that they didn't even think was a possibility. So we want to avoid that. And the way that we avoid that is with that fake attack. It's kind of like a stutter step. And what that does is now that gives us that little second of extra information that allows us as the defender to make the right decision in that environment. If that player starts to go for that Maradona, well, now we can adjust our body. If that player starts to take a touch in that direction that we want him to, well, now we know we can go in and tackle. If that attacker goes and starts to make that pass, we could either block the pass, or if they're going to shoot, we can get ready to block the shot. But we have now a lot more information about what that player could do. And that's the constant battle between a good attacker who is now using a deceptive move to get the defender to bait, and the defender, the great defender, who fakes attack to try and get the attacker to do something. And it's the first person that actually shows their cards without doing a fake that, in my opinion, usually loses. So if you are the one that dribbles first without a fake one way go the other, I don't think it's going to work for you. If you are the defender that always jumps in, you're making the move first. Whereas what we want with our defenders is the fake attack, so we can see what truly comes out of that attacker. And when we're the attacker, we want to fake one way so we can see what truly comes out from the defender's point of view. And I think those two mentalities of, one, cut off one side, two, let the attacker make the decision first. Those two shifts in the mindset are really going to change the way that we defend, because honestly, we're getting too many goals scored on us. And I can look back and say, well, it's because our players, they build out of the back and they try moves, and, our defenders, when they mess up, we get scored on. Those goals I'm okay with. That's not the problem. The problem is when players dribble one-on-one against us and they beat us pretty consistently and take a shot and score. That's those goals that we're trying to eliminate. And those are happening way too often for a team that really works on 1v1 defending. So we have to stop blaming the players, because it's not their fault if it happens in more than one team. And we have to look at a fundamental shift within the way that we teach it. And that's what we're going to do this week. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you got something out of it. And I'm excited for this weekend. This weekend, our 2010s are done. So they had their last game this past weekend. A game that didn't really mean anything. So we also tried the one-touch, two-touch move with them. Didn't go as well as the 2012 and 13s, and that's to be expected. Those are players that went through COVID and really had like a 2-year break without soccer and deceptive dribbling. So, our 2011 12s, I thought they did okay. It was their first time doing this. Same with our 2014s. Again, those two teams have our 2014s. Their last game is next weekend for the indoor season. Our 2011s, they have 2 more games. And so our 2012s and 2013s, their season is also done. So my Saturdays are free now, which is interesting. Haven't had that in a while, so I don't really know what to do with it. But so we only have Sunday games. So there's that. And then our outdoor season will start, I think in like a couple of weeks, we have our first tournament. So super excited for that. That's the show for this week. Thanks so much for listening. And if you want to support the show and support me a little bit more, you can follow me on Instagram, Gladiator Soccer Academy, You can check out our YouTube page, Gladiator Soccer Academy. You can email me. It's not Gladiator Soccer Academy, but the email's in the show notes and on the website. You can join our Facebook group, Coaching Soccer Weekly. We are getting very, very close to 300, which is really cool. So help us get to 300 on Facebook. You just look up Coaching Soccer Weekly, and that's it. A big amazing thanks to our amazing sponsor, VO. This week, the reason we're here talking about defense is because I watched the games back with our players, and we would just get beat by players who didn't do any moves. They just dribbled past us, and that's not good enough. And the only reason we were able to do that and see that and the players to understand it was through VO. VO is an amazing partner. You record your games. You don't have to worry about it. You just have to press record. It automatically gets you highlights. And it's a really great way to market your business as well. So if you're looking for $200 off for VO, it's in the show notes. And until next week, enjoy the journey, enjoy the moments, but most importantly, enjoy the game. Coaching Soccer Week is a production of world-class coaching. All rights reserved.
Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end, and you can check out more of our videos right here. And if you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and the subscribe button.